My husband fell in love with a rice cooker. If this person places their emotional attachment onto an object, even more so than on real people, he slept with it every night and named it Loretta. Fetishism, Mom said immediately. It's often a substitute behavior following some kind of trauma. But Serafina, the important thing isn't why he's doing this, it's whether you feel safe, in the end. He killed both me and our daughter just because I used it to cook rice once. Safe. When I opened my eyes, I found myself reborn on the day he proposed to the rice cooker on one knee. I remembered the searing pain in my abdomen from my past life, remembered Lottie's small body lying in a pool of blood. This time, as I watched him gently wipe the pot lid, I uncovered an even more horrifying truth. 5. An electric rice cooker is so much better, so compliant and obedient. Once I divorce that old hag, I'll marry you. My husband Damon's voice drifted from the kitchen, soft as a lover's whisper. I stood in the middle of the living room, the glass in my hand nearly slipping. Everything around me feels familiar, telling me I've been reborn. I've been reborn back to the day Damon started talking to the rice cooker. Memories from my past life came flooding back. Damon fell in love with our rice cooker, demanded a divorce, and carried it into our bedroom every night. I thought it was just a joke he made because of work stress. Until that day, when our rice cooker broke, and I used his prized one to make a meal. Serafina, is breakfast ready? Damon's voice snapped me back to reality. I mechanically turned around and saw him standing at the kitchen door, cradling the brand new red rice cooker in his arms, his fingers gently caressing the lid as if it were a lover's face. Almost ready. I forced a smile, but my voice trembled slightly. Damon didn't notice anything amiss. He looked down at the rice cooker and said, "Loretta, what do you feel like eating today?" "I'll make it for you, Loretta." He used to call the rice cooker that in his past life too. 5. Fighting back a tremble, I quickly fried up some eggs and bacon. My 7-year-old daughter Lottie wandered into the kitchen, rubbing her eyes. "Mom, I dreamed Daddy married a pot," Lottie said innocently. My blood ran cold. On this very day in my past life, Lottie had said the exact same thing, and I had just laughed, ruffled her hair, and said, "Daddy's just kidding. Lottie, hurry and get ready. Mom will take you to school." My voice was unnervingly calm. Damon didn't notice us at all. He was meticulously wiping down the rice cooker's exterior with a soft cloth, his gaze as focused as if it were the most precious treasure in the world. My knuckles were white, gripping the steering wheel tightly on the way to drop Lottie off at school. Memories from a past life flashed through my mind like a movie. Damon became increasingly obsessed with the rice cooker, naming it Loretta. He talked to it daily, cleaned it meticulously, and even bought a silk scarf to tie around its handle. He started to distance himself from Lottie and me. He stopped watching TV with us in the evenings, instead taking his rice cooker into his study and staying there for hours. I just thought it was a weird habit brought on by work stress, until that day I used his rice cooker to make congee. When he found out, his face instantly contorted into a terrifying grimace. "You've defiled Loretta," he shrieked, rushing into the kitchen and grabbing a cleaver. "Mommy, are you crying?" Lottie's voice broke through my thoughts. I wiped my face, only then realizing it was streaked with tears. "It's nothing, sweetie. My eyes are just a little irritated." After safely dropping Lottie off at school, instead of heading straight to the office as usual, I drove to the nearest electronics store. "I need to know the truth. Do you have the kind of camera that can be monitored remotely?" I asked the salesperson, my voice barely above a whisper. 2 hours later, I returned home to find Damon had already left for work. I quickly installed a tiny camera in the corner of his study's bookshelf, pointing directly at his desk. In his past life, he'd date his rice cooker every night. After all that, I collapsed onto the sofa, trembling. 5. The searing pain of a knife piercing my abdomen from my past life still felt like it was burning inside me. I looked at my hands. There was no blood, no wounds. I had truly been reborn. At 6 in the evening, Damon came home earlier than usual. In our previous life, he always claimed to be working late or socializing for business. Only later did I realize he was rushing back to be with his Loretta. "I'm home." He walked straight to the kitchen, carefully taking the rice cooker out of the cabinet. "Loretta, did you miss me?" I pretended to organize Lottie's school bag, secretly watching him. Damon, in his early 30s, was still handsome and well-groomed in his suit, but the expression on his face at that moment sent shivers down my spine. It was an almost fanatical kind of love. "Serafina, I won't be having dinner tonight. Loretta and I will eat in the study," he said, pulling a delicate bento box from his shopping bag. I bought her new clothes. It was a mini apron, just big enough to fit over the rice cooker. "Okay," I replied curtly, trying to keep my expression neutral. On this day in my past life, I complained a few times, and he ignored me all night. Damon nodded contentedly, carrying the rice cooker and apron into the study, gently closing the door behind him. After confirming the door was locked, I immediately pulled out my phone and opened the surveillance app. On the screen, Damon was gently putting an apron on the rice cooker, then took a small photo frame from the drawer and placed it beside the appliance. Loretta, work was exhausting today. Only seeing you helps me relax. He spoke to the rice cooker in a sickeningly sweet tone. That hag doesn't understand me at all. Only you get me. I felt a sharp cramp in my stomach. It was the same in his past life. Day after day, he poured his heart out to an inanimate appliance until he completely lost his mind. 5. Damon opened the bento box to reveal exquisite sushi. I got you your favorite salmon. He picked up a piece with his chopsticks and held it in front of the rice cooker's steam vent. Come on, open wide. On the monitor, he patiently fed the entire sushi platter to the rice cooker, occasionally wiping its non-existent mouth with a napkin. Then he pulled out a small notebook and started writing something. I zoomed in on the screen and saw love letters to Loretta written on the cover of the notebook. Today marks the 30th day since we met. Damon gazed affectionately at the rice cooker and declared, I've made up my mind. I'm divorcing Serafina next month. She's never been worthy of me. Only you are my destined true love. My fingernails dug deep into my palms. On this very day in my past life, he'd said something similar, and I'd dismissed it as midlife crisis ramblings. Damon continued his date, retrieving a small box from deep within the bookshelf. When he opened the box, my breath almost caught. Inside was a diamond ring. Loretta, will you marry me? He slipped the ring onto the rice cooker's power cord. I knew you'd say yes. We'll have lots of children, so many. At that very moment, the surveillance footage captured a clear image of that small photo frame. I zoomed in again and again, and finally made out the person in the photo. A young woman in her early 20s, with long flowing hair and a sweet smile. In the bottom right corner of the photo, a small line of text read, Forever yours, Loretta. Damon never mentioned this Loretta. Suddenly, all the pieces fell into place. The rice cooker was a Yushan brand, but he called it Loretta. He spoke to the rice cooker as if it were a real person. The design of that diamond ring is clearly outdated. It's obviously not a recent purchase. Damon isn't in love with the rice cooker, he's using it as a substitute for someone named Loretta. 5. Just as I was lost in thought, the sound of the study door handle turning startled me so much I nearly dropped my phone. I quickly closed the surveillance feed and pretended to be tidying up the magazines on the coffee table. Damon emerged, clutching the rice cooker, a strange look of contentment on his face. Loretta's tired. I'm taking her to the bedroom to rest, he said. I'll sleep in the guest room tonight. On this very night in my previous life, I tried to stop him, which led to our first argument about the rice cooker. This time, I just nodded. All right, don't catch a cold. He seemed quite pleased with my compliance, carrying his beloved toward the guest room. As soon as the door clicked shut, I immediately returned to the surveillance monitor to replay the footage from tonight. I rewatched the clip of Damon pulling out the photo frame repeatedly until, from one particular angle, I finally spotted a name written on the back, Loretta. Loretta. The name hit me like a bolt of lightning. Trembling, I opened my laptop and searched for the name on social media, adding Damon's University. A few minutes later, I found it, an account that hadn't been updated in 7 years, with the girl from the photo frame as its profile picture. The last status was posted on May 19, 2018. Tomorrow is Damon's birthday, planning a big surprise for him on May 21st. A local news brief reported, car crash near XX University leaves one female student dead at the scene. Damon never mentioned this part of his past. We met and fell in love, and he acted like a bachelor who had never been in a serious relationship before. I continued my search and came across a campus forum post from late May 2010 titled, In Memory of Loretta, Our Senior. The post mentioned that Loretta was Damon's girlfriend, and they were deeply in love. She tragically passed away on her way to pick up a birthday cake. At the time, she was also carrying an electric rice cooker, intending to prepare a special birthday meal for Damon as a gift. My blood ran cold. The rice cooker Damon's obsessed with now is the same brand as the one Loretta had with her when the accident happened. This isn't just a normal fetish, it's a pathological transference. He's projecting his longing and love for his deceased girlfriend onto a rice cooker. Just as I was reeling from the shock, Lottie's cries came from her room. I rushed over and found she was having a nightmare. Mom, I dreamed Dad didn't want us anymore. Lottie sobbed. I held my daughter tightly, remembering how she had fallen in a pool of blood in my previous life. No, sweetheart, Mommy will protect you, I promised softly, my voice surprisingly firm. 5. That night, I held Lottie as she slept. My mind replaying the horrific end of my last life and the astonishing truth I'd uncovered today. Damon's mind was clearly twisted. He saw a rice cooker as the embodiment of his dead ex-girlfriend and was even willing to kill for it. The next morning, I woke up 2 hours earlier than usual and meticulously checked every corner of the house. In the nightstand of the guest room, I found a diary. As I opened the first page, my stomach churned. On May 20th, 2010, Loretta left, taking my heart with her. Today at the mall, I saw a Royal Chef rice cooker, identical to the one Loretta had on the day of the accident. I bought it, and when I heard the steam release, it was as if I could hear Loretta's gentle laughter again. Flipping through the diary, it recorded how he gradually transferred his emotions to the rice cooker, until recently deciding to divorce Serafina and officially marry Loretta. On the last page, it read, "Loretta doesn't like Serafina and Lottie, they're too loud. After the divorce, I'll give Loretta a quiet home." My hands trembled uncontrollably. This wasn't a joke, or a quirk, but a dangerous declaration from someone whose mind was completely twisted. I put the diary back exactly where I found it and started making breakfast as if nothing had happened. I'd already composed myself by the time Damon walked into the kitchen, carrying a rice cooker. "It's the weekend, so I'm taking Lottie to stay with my parents for a couple of days," I said calmly. "You can get along with Loretta?" Damon's eyes lit up. "Really? That's great." He reacted as if he'd just heard his wife was going on a business trip, thrilled. Before leaving, I took one last look at Damon on the sofa, cradling the rice cooker and whispering sweet nothings to it, completely oblivious to his wife and daughter who were about to depart. This time, I won't wait for history to repeat itself. When I brought Lottie back to my parents' house, Mom was in the yard watering flowers. She put down the kettle in surprise when she saw us arriving with our luggage. "Serafina, what a surprise. Mom, Lottie and I are staying for a couple of days," I cut in, softening my voice. "Damon's been under a lot of work pressure lately and needs some quiet." It was a flimsy excuse, but it would do. Dad came out of the house, took the duffel bag from my hand, and his sharp gaze lingered on my face for a few seconds. But he didn't ask anything. My parents' house is a 2-story building with a yard, located in the suburbs. I settled Lottie into the room she used to have as a child, then, using the excuse of needing to organize my clothes, locked myself in the adjacent bedroom. 5. The surveillance app on my phone was still running. In the scene, Damon is sitting in his study, with that red rice cooker in front of him, and photo album is open before him, and he gently traces a finger over the pictures, then starts talking to the rice cooker. I turn up the volume. "Remember, Loretta, this is where we had our first date." He pointed at a photo, his voice eerily gentle. "You looked more beautiful than all the flowers on campus in that white dress." The photo was too far away to make out details, but I could tell it was a corner of a university campus, with a long-haired girl standing under a cherry blossom tree. I held my breath, watching Damon turn to the next page. "That day you gave me this rice cooker and said you'd cook for me for the rest of my life." His voice suddenly choked. "But Serafina defiled you." My blood ran cold. In his past life, he used that very word, defiled, and then he killed us. On the surveillance footage, Damon suddenly stood up and began pacing back and forth in the study. "No, Loretta, I can't wait any longer." He bit his nails nervously. "They have to disappear. Just like you did." I slammed the monitor shut, my hands trembling so badly I could barely hold my phone. This wasn't speculation or paranoia. Damon himself said they have to disappear. Outside, Lottie's laughter and her dad's playful teasing drifted in, so ordinary, yet so precious. In my previous life, those sounds had been silence forever. On that rainy night, I took a deep breath, opened my phone's notepad, and started listing everything: lawyer's contact info, Lottie's birth certificate, my bank statements, the property deed, every document and contact I might possibly need. Then I emailed my company's HR, requesting 2 weeks of emergency leave. During dinner, I tried my best to act normal, even chatting with my dad about the tomatoes he'd recently planted. Lottie excitedly talked about school, completely oblivious to my unusual quietness. "How's Damon doing these days?" Mom suddenly asked, handing me a bowl of soup. "We haven't seen him in ages." The spoon trembled slightly in my hand. "He's very busy," I answered vaguely. "There's a major project at the company." Mom nodded and didn't press further. Just before bedtime, she knocked on my door holding 2 cups of warm milk. "Here," she handed me one. "You've always blinked when lying since you were little." I took the cup, warmth spreading to my palms, and suddenly felt my eyes well up. "Mom, what if, just hypothetically." I stared at the faint ripples on the milk's surface. "Someone seems completely normal but is actually dangerous. What should we do?" Mom was silent for a moment, then took my hand. "Serafina, you know what I did before I retired?" She used to be a clerk at the family court. "Dangerous people often show signs, but those closest to them choose to ignore them." She didn't ask who specifically, which gave me the courage to continue. 5. "No," I whispered, "I'm not safe." My mother's eyes instantly sharpened. What about Lottie? Not her either. She set her cup down with a decisive movement. First thing tomorrow, I'm taking you to see someone. That night, after everyone in the house had fallen asleep, I opened the surveillance feed again. Damon wasn't in the study, but the rice cooker was missing too. I scrolled back the timeline and saw him carrying it into the bedroom, our bedroom. The view switched to the bedroom camera, showing Damon placing the rice cooker on my pillow and gently tucking it under the covers. Good night, Loretta. He kissed the pot lid. Tomorrow's your birthday. I'll give you a surprise. My stomach clenched. Tomorrow is May 20th, the date on the picture frame in the surveillance footage, the day Loretta had her accident. After Damon turned off the light, I kept staring at the dark screen until I was sure he was asleep. Then I opened my phone's browser and searched for Loretta car accident. A few old news articles popped up, all very brief. College student Loretta, killed in a car accident. Hit-and-run driver fled the scene. One of the reports included a blurry photo of the accident scene, showing a deformed red rice cooker scattered on the ground, identical to the one Damon is now obsessed with. I suddenly understood the meaning of Loretta's birthday. It's not the rice cooker's birthday, it's Loretta's death anniversary. At 5 in the morning, I quietly got up and drove back to my own place. I needed more evidence. And Damon usually doesn't wake up until 7:30. The house was eerily quiet. I tiptoed into the study and went straight for his desk. The drawer was locked, but the key was in the pocket of Damon's favorite jacket. After 6 years of marriage, I knew all his habits. In the third drawer, I found what I called Loretta's corner, a stack of photos, a few handwritten cards, and a leather-bound notebook. The girl in the photos was around 20, with long hair and big eyes, smiling brightly under a cherry blossom tree. The cards were all addressed to Damon and signed Loretta, but what truly unnerved me was the notebook. I opened to the first page, and in red ink, it read, "A promise to Loretta. I swear I'll avenge you, Loretta, the world that took you. I will destroy it piece by piece." The handwriting was meticulously neat, almost disturbingly so. I quickly flipped through the pages. Most were love poems and memories dedicated to Loretta. Until the last few pages, Serafina used Loretta. She defiled Loretta's pure body. Loretta is crying, and I must act. The date below this text was 3 days later, with a creepy smiley face drawn next to it. My fingers were trembling uncontrollably. In my previous life, that was the day he killed us. The last page of the notebook has a checklist. 1. Buy a new knife, sharper. 2. Clean the basement. 3. Lottie's school absence records. 4. Alibi. Every item was checked off except the last one. 5. My mind was racing. 3 days, in my previous life. I spent these 3 days completely unaware, until disaster struck. This time, it's different. I put everything back exactly as I found it, only taking photos of a few key pages. Just as I was about to leave, I heard a noise from the kitchen. Damon was awake. 2 hours earlier than usual. I froze in place, hearing footsteps approaching the study. At the last possible moment, I slipped into the study's large wardrobe. The door opened, and Damon's slippers appeared beneath the gap. He hummed "Happy Birthday" as he walked toward the desk. "Happy birthday, Loretta," he whispered, then pulled open the drawer. "Today is our most important day." I held my breath. Peeking through the closet door, I saw him take out a notebook, write something in it, and then pull a small box from deep within a drawer. When he opened the box, I almost cried out. Inside was a folding knife, its blade glinting menacingly in the morning light. "Soon, no one will bother us anymore," Damon murmured to the rice cooker, his voice as soft as a lover's whisper, "just as clean and neat as when you left." He then left the study, carrying the rice cooker and the box. I didn't dare come out of the closet until I heard the front door close, my legs feeling like jelly. Damon left, and he had a knife. Where is he going? What is he going to do? Fear washed over me like a wave. But my rational mind told me this was not the time to fall apart. I quickly checked the notebook. On the last page, he had written, "Today, final preparations. Tomorrow, Lottie. The day after, Serafina. On Loretta's Memorial Day, we'll be together forever." The handwriting was neat, without a single tremor, as if he were writing a shopping list. I collapsed into the chair, the agonizing pain from what felt like a past life seemingly returning. It wasn't a crime of passion after all, but a meticulously planned murder. Before leaving, I checked the kitchen. The chef's knife was missing from the knife block. Damon had taken it and replaced it with a sharper new knife. There were a few extra bottles of cleaner and a large roll of black trash bags in the refrigerator. In my past life, I turned a blind eye to all of this. When I returned to my parents' house, Mom was already ready to take me to see that person, a divorce lawyer she had met before at the courthouse. "Valerie has handled many unusual divorce cases," Mom said meaningfully, "including those where one party was violent. Valerie's office was as clean and efficient as she was." 5. After listening to my story, she got straight to the point. "Miss Serafina, what you need isn't a divorce agreement, but a restraining order." She pushed a form across the table. Based on the behaviors you've described, the judge will approve it, but first, you'll need evidence. I took out my phone and showed her the surveillance footage and photos from my notebook. Attorney Valerie's expression grew serious. This goes beyond the scope of a typical marital dispute. She put down her phone. Ms. Serafina, your husband clearly has serious psychological issues and has become a threat. I advise you to take the following steps immediately. Her list was almost identical to my memo, but with a few additions: file a police report, change all passwords, and apply for emergency custody. Most importantly, Attorney Valerie said, looking directly into my eyes, do not meet him alone, and do not let him suspect your plans. People like him, once they feel they're losing control, can act extremely. Leaving the law firm, Mom squeezed my hand tightly. Serafina, you and Lottie are staying with us, don't go anywhere else. I nodded, but deep down I knew it wasn't enough. Damon knows this place, he'll come looking for us sooner or later. We need to vanish completely, at least until he's under control. That afternoon, while Lottie and Dad were playing in the yard, I set the plan in motion. First, I contacted the bank to transfer my savings to my mom's account. Then, I logged into the cloud to back up all our family photos and important documents. Finally, I emailed Lottie's teacher to say she'd be absent for a week, but I didn't give a specific reason. Every step felt like a life-or-death chess game, and I had to play it more carefully than I ever had before. In the evening, I checked the surveillance footage again. Damon was already home, in his study, talking to a rice cooker with that notebook spread open in front of him. Everything's ready, Loretta. He stroked the lid of the pot. Tomorrow, I'll pick up Lottie first. Tell her what happened to her mom. Once she calms down, I couldn't listen anymore. I muted the sound, leaving only the visuals. Damon took a pill bottle from the drawer, shook out a few pills, and swallowed them. Then he continued writing something, occasionally smiling at the rice cooker. This quiet madness is more terrifying than a roar. How could I have missed these signs in my past life? Perhaps it was because I was too familiar, too trusting, or simply unwilling to face the truth of my failing marriage. After dinner, I tucked Lottie into bed and read her an extra story. Looking at her peaceful sleeping face, I made up my mind. Tomorrow morning, we're leaving the city. At 3 a.m., I quietly got up to pack the essentials: documents, cash, a change of clothes, Lottie's favorite doll, everything we could take without arousing suspicion. Mom heard the movement and appeared at the doorway. No, she whispered. I nodded. He's planning to go after Lottie tomorrow. Mom's face went white instantly, but she didn't ask any more questions. I'll go get your dad to prepare the car. 5. We moved with the precision of a military operation. Dad checked the car, Mom dressed Lottie without waking her, and I destroyed all notes and records that could leave a trail. At 5 o'clock sharp, we were ready. Lottie was carried to the car, half asleep, clutching her teddy bear tightly. Mommy, where are we going? She asked, rubbing her eyes. On a trip, sweetie, I said, buckling my seatbelt. A surprise trip. Dad was driving, Mom was in the passenger seat, and Lottie and I were in the back. The first rays of sunlight were just breaking through the clouds as the car merged onto the highway. I checked my phone's surveillance feed one last time. Damon was already awake, furiously searching for something in every room. Without a doubt, he realized we were missing Serafina. He screamed into the empty house on the surveillance footage. Where did you hide Loretta? Then he spotted the envelope I'd left on the coffee table. Inside was just one sheet, a photo I'd taken of his murder plan notebook. Damon's face was distorted on the surveillance footage. He frantically overturned the coffee table, smashed a vase, and finally knelt on the floor, wailing at a rice cooker. They got away, Loretta. But I'll find them, I swear. I turned off the monitor, took out the SIM card, snapped it in half, and threw it out the window. The scenery outside the car window gradually changed from city skyscrapers to open fields. Lottie was asleep in the back seat, her small face resting against the car seat, tiny shadows from her eyelashes cast in the morning light. I clutched my phone, knuckles white. Where are we going? Dad asked, his voice low, looking at me through the rearview mirror. Qingshan. I unfolded the map app to the marked location. It's 200 kilometers from here. There's a family guest house. I found this place last night after staying up late. It was remote but not desolate, had basic medical facilities, and most importantly, allowed cash payments without ID registration. Mom nodded silently from the side, her rough fingers gently stroking Lottie's forehead, as if protecting a precious treasure. My phone vibrated. It was a message from Valerie, the lawyer. Emergency protection order filed. Contacting the police now. Stay in touch and stay safe. I hesitated, then replied, can't use this number right now. I'll contact you within 24 hours. Then I turned it off and removed the battery. In his past life, Damon used to boast about his ability to track clients' locations through mobile signals. As a cybersecurity engineer, this kind of technology was a piece of cake for him. 5. Qingshan Town was more tranquil than I had imagined. The guest house was a 3-story building. Run by a retired teacher couple, I hastily fabricated a story. Domestic violence, urgently needed a safe haven. The old lady's gaze softened immediately, and she led us to see the two most secluded rooms in the backyard. A mother with a child also stayed here the year before last, she said as she handed me the keys. She stayed for 3 months until that beast was caught. That sentence gave me an inexplicable sense of comfort. After settling Lottie in, my parents and I held a small meeting in the simple kitchen in the front yard. We need to come up with a plan, I said, spreading out the notebook I bought in town. First and foremost, we absolutely cannot let Damon find this place. Dad frowned, but he has so many resources, that's why we have to cut all ties. I drew a line on the paper. New phones, new numbers, only one-way contact with attorney Valerie. Second, Lottie needs to transfer schools, or at least take a temporary leave, Mom added. Healthcare is another issue. Lottie is due for her vaccinations next month. A sharp pang went through me as I wrote down the word medical. In her previous life, Lottie's story ended forever with her 7-year-old vaccination record. Evidence is key, I emphasized, circling the word. We need to prove Damon had intent to kill, not just strange behavior. For the next 3 days, we lived like spies. Dad changed his route daily, sourcing supplies from different towns, while Mom took care of Lottie, teaching her to read and draw. Meanwhile, I kept in touch with Valerie, my lawyer, using public computers at the town's internet cafe, logging in with a different account each time. On the 4th morning, Valerie finally sent good news: protection order approved, police notified, applying for emergency custody and divorce. Any new evidence? Biting my lip, I typed back, yes. His handwritten murder plan, photos attached. As soon as I send it, I'll clear the records and shut down immediately. A fine drizzle was falling on Qingshan town as I left the internet cafe. I pulled my jacket tighter, suddenly catching a whiff of danger in the damp air, just like the day my rice cooker broke in my last life, and Damon was standing in the kitchen doorway, back at the guest house. Lottie was learning to fold paper boats with the old woman, seeing me. She held up a crooked little blue boat. Mommy, this is for Daddy. He said he'd take me boating. My blood ran cold. Lottie, when did Daddy say that? Last night, Lottie said, tilting her head. He told me in the teddy bear. The old woman looked at me, puzzled. I tried to stay calm and asked, Sweetie, what teddy bear? This little bear. Lottie pulled out her favorite teddy bear from behind, the only toy she brought with her the day she left home. I took the bear and felt an unnatural hard lump with my fingers. Tearing open the seam, a tiny electronic device glowed with a faint red light. GPS tracker. My vision blurred instantly, and my ears buzzed. When Damon gave Lottie this bear in their previous life, he smiled and said, This way, Daddy will always find you. I thought it was just sweet talk. 5. Mom, Dad. My voice was shrill, not like my own. Pack your bags now. He found us. 10 minutes later. We squeezed into the car with just the bare essentials. The old woman slipped me a note. My daughter has an empty house in Pinewood Village. Here's the address. No one knows about it. We had just left town when Dad noticed a black SUV tailing us from a distance. Is that the one? He asked, his voice tense. Looking through the rear window, I recognized the car. It was Damon's company vehicle. In the passenger seat, a red object was faintly visible. His rice cooker. Loretta, speed up. I told Dad, dialing 911 at the same time. The signal kept cutting out, but I still managed to clearly report our location and situation. This is Serafina. I'm being followed by my homicidal husband. License plate number. The call suddenly dropped. In the rearview mirror, the SUV suddenly accelerated, charging right at us. Hold on tight. Dad swerved the wheel hard, turning the car onto a narrow dirt road. The rain intensified, and mud splattered against the windows. Lottie started crying in the back seat, and her mother held her tightly. After a sharp turn, the hood suddenly started smoking. Damn this old car. Dad slammed the steering wheel. The car lurched to a halt at the edge of a pine forest. We split up. I decided instantly. Dad, take Mom and Lottie through the woods. Follow this path. It should lead to Pine Village. I'll draw him away. No, Mom grabbed my hand. It's too dangerous. I watched the approaching headlights in the rearview mirror. No time to argue. Remember, no matter what happens, don't look back. Keep Lottie safe. I jumped out of the car and ran towards the highway in the opposite direction. Through the curtain of rain, I heard the SUV's screeching brakes, followed by Damon's shout, Serafina. I didn't look back, just kept running until a pair of headlights enveloped me. Damon got out of the car and chased after me, the newly bought kitchen knife in his hand glinting coldly in the rain. Where did you hide Loretta? His voice was hoarse and distorted. And Lottie? I stopped and turned to face him. Rain streamed down his face, mingling with what looked like tears of fervent emotion. In his other arm, he clutched the red rice cooker, adorned with a ridiculous miniature apron. There is no Loretta, Damon. I slowly backed away. There's only Loretta, and she's been dead for 10 years. That name flipped a switch. Damon's face twitched. How do you know Loretta? I know you treat your rice cooker like it's her. I continued, backing away, leading him further from the direction his family had fled. I know you celebrate her birthday every May 20th. I know. I took a deep breath. I know you planned to kill Lottie yesterday and me today. 5. His expression shifted from shock to a snarl. You looked at my notebook. The knife pointed at me. You've defiled Loretta's memory. Loretta died in a car accident, I continued, discreetly pressing the record button on my phone in my pocket. It had nothing to do with you. Why are you taking it out on Lottie and me? Nothing to do with her. Damon suddenly burst into laughter, his voice jarring in the rain. It was our 2-year anniversary that day. She went to buy a cake, and that rice cooker, she said she'd cook for me for the rest of her life. His voice choked. If it wasn't to surprise me, she wouldn't have taken that road. It's my fault. But it's also the world's fault. His twisted logic was chilling. I continued to prompt him. So you're going to punish the world by killing your own wife and child? You're not real, he shrieked, rain splattering. Only Loretta is real. You're just testing my defenses. His eyes were unfocused, as if staring at some distant point. System-programmed NPCs. His words sent a chill down my spine. I realized he might have completely lost touch with reality. Siren wails echoed from a distance. Damon's head snapped up, his expression growing even more deranged. You called the police. He lunged at me, knife raised. Then I'll just have to execute the plan ahead of schedule. A blinding light suddenly shone between us. Damon instinctively raised a hand to shield his eyes, and I took the opportunity to dive into the bushes by the roadside. Drop your weapons, the amplified voice boomed through the rainy night. 3 police cars fanned out, surrounding us. What happened next felt like slow motion. Damon turned to face the police. The rice cooker fell into the mud, and he raised his knife. A police officer, who seemed to have appeared out of nowhere, struck Damon with a taser. He fell stiffly to the ground, his knife clattering beside him. The other officers swarmed him, quickly subduing him. Miss Serafina, a female officer asked, helping me up. Are you all right? I nodded, but my eyes remained fixed on Damon, pinned down in the mud. He still struggled to reach for the rice cooker, muttering, Loretta, Loretta. At the police station, I cooperated and completed all the statements. Inside the trunk of Damon's SUV, police discovered a gruesome toolkit, ropes, duct tape, a large quantity of sedatives, and a notebook detailing a murder plan. Unlike the rough draft I saw, this plan is precise down to the minute. He's a professional, the detective captain in charge of the case told me. The plan included how to create an alibi, how to dispose of the body. He chose his words carefully. It's a miracle you and your daughter survived. I let out a wry smile. Not a miracle, but a second chance. They'll never understand that. 5. Attorney Valerie arrived in Green Mountain Town the next day, bringing more good legal news. The emergency protection order was in effect. The divorce proceedings were being fast-tracked, and temporary custody of Lottie had been granted to me, and this, she said, handing me a document, was found when the police searched her house. It was a photo of the complete altar in Damon's study's secret room, a rice cooker placed in a glass display case, surrounded by Loretta's photos, candles, and even a small incense burner. Most chilling were the sticky notes plastered all over the wall, detailing my daily schedule and Lottie's school drop-off and pick-up times, a surveillance that had lasted at least half a year. He's not right in the head, is he? I whispered. Attorney Valerie nodded. The police have arranged for a psychiatric evaluation. Regardless of the outcome, it won't change the nature of the case. This was premeditated attempted murder. A week later, we returned to the city. The house was sealed off as a crime scene. So Lottie and I stayed at my parents' place for the time being. That night, after putting Lottie to sleep, I finally let myself fall apart, screaming silently in the bathroom, pounding my fists against the wall until my knuckles bled. It wasn't grief, it was release. The fear and anger I couldn't express in my past life had finally found an outlet. A month later, Damon's psychiatric evaluation came back. Object personification delusion accompanied by severe depression. The report explained how he had completely projected the image and spirit of the deceased Loretta onto that rice cooker, developing an entire delusional system around it. He believes the rice cooker is Loretta reincarnated, the psychological evaluator told me. In his delusion, you and your daughter are obstacles to their love. On the day of the incident, he was experiencing an acute psychotic episode. I closed the report and asked the most crucial question: will he go to jail? Of course, mental illness doesn't equate to acquittal, it merely affects the place of incarceration and the treatment plan. The evaluator adjusted her glasses. Given his complete capacity for planning and ability to conceal his actions, the court will determine that he knew what he was doing at the time of the crime. The sun was shining brightly the day I walked out of court. My lawyer, Valerie, confirmed the final details with me. The divorce was final. And I had full custody and the vast majority of our shared assets. There's one more thing, she hesitated. Damon asked to see you one last time. You can refuse, of course. I thought about it for a long time before finally nodding, not out of pity, but to put a definitive end to his own rebirth. 5. In the visiting room, Damon wore an orange prison uniform. A healing gunshot wound visible beneath the bandage on his right shoulder. His eyes were much clearer, but when he saw me, his first words were still, "Is Loretta all right? The rice cooker has been seized as evidence," I said calmly. He lowered his head. I know that wasn't the real Loretta." The words seemed to drain all his courage. "The doctor showed me the pictures. The real Loretta is already dead." I finished his sentence. 10 years, Damon, and you almost dragged Lottie and your wife down with you, all for a dead woman. His tears fell onto the metal table. I missed her too much. After that day, I felt like I split into two people, one who went to work, got married, had kids, the other forever stuck in that moment. He looked up, his eyes pained but clear. When I saw that rice cooker, the second me, won. I was silent for a long time. The tragedy of a past life, the narrow escape from death in this one, it all stemmed from a young man's unresolved grief. "I'll take Lottie out of this city," I finally said. "I hope you get the treatment you need." As I got up to leave, Damon called out to me, "Serafina, that day in the rain, you said you knew my plan, but those details, I never wrote them in my notebook. How did you know?" I stood at the doorway, my back to him. "I had a dream," I whispered, "a very long and terrifying dream." As I walked out of the courthouse, Lottie was in her grandma's arms, eating ice cream. Seeing me, she held up her little chocolate-smeared hand and asked, "Mommy, are we going home?" I bent down and picked her up, this little life I couldn't protect in my past life, now warm and real in my arms. "Let's go home, baby," I whispered, kissing her forehead, "to our new home." The sun shone down on us, casting no shadows. The end. Story 2. In my past life, a noble golden phoenix, bore the dragon prince, only an inferior half-blooded WIRM, yet my low-born sister, a mere grey phoenix, gave birth to the mightiest obsidian dragon for the second prince. The crown prince became the laughingstock of the court, blaming me for his disgrace until hatred drove him mad. He beheaded our son, butchered my body, and cast our remains into the plague pits. When I opened my eyes again and saw the crown prince choosing my sister without hesitation this time, I knew he had been reborn too. Little did he know, I possessed the legendary 5-colored golden phoenix physique capable of birthing divine dragons. That half-breed spawn of dragon and serpent is the real reason counterfeit dragons are born. Since ancient times, the phoenix bloodline has been noble, producing offspring of remarkable intelligence and grace. Born to rule, they often carve out legendary empires. Thus, our women are typically betrothed to the dominant dragon clans upon coming of age, all to prevent us from bearing children for other races and undermining draconic supremacy. Today marks the selection ceremony when dragon lords choose brides from our adult women. I've just arrived at the ancestral hall. The dragon prince in dark robes at the center was already scanning our ranks with eager eyes. "Has Jessa arrived? Come to my side at once." 1. The moment those words fell, dozens of eyes simultaneously turned toward my younger sister behind me. Even she never imagined someone of her lowly lineage could catch the crown prince's favor. Her face lit up with surprise while still managing to shoot me a challenging glance. "This isn't proper. My lineage isn't as pure as elder sisters, let alone how she's been devoted to the crown prince for years. Wouldn't this break sister's heart? What if the clan gives me trouble afterwards?" By the end, her eyes reddened as tears began falling freely. The crown prince's heart ached as he frowned, swiftly pulling her into a tight embrace. "Don't worry, as long as I'm here, no one will dare lay a finger on you." His gaze toward me was piercingly cold, laced with resentment beyond ordinary comprehension. What good is pure bloodline? The real skill lies in bearing gifted children. I know he's holding a grudge because in our past life, I bore him the lowest-ranked pseudo-dragon in the clan. Not only did it disgrace him publicly, but the Dragon King outright called him worthless, costing him his crown prince status, while Prince Eli, whom he always despised, sired a rare black dragon with my sister, a once-in-a-century occurrence. Not only did he make a spectacular debut, but his silver tongue also won the Dragon King's favor. The successor to the dragon throne was decided on the spot. Despite years of meticulous scheming, all his efforts came to nothing. A fallen phoenix is less esteemed than a chicken. Those who once fawned over her now mock her mercilessly. How could his proud nature tolerate such humiliation? In a fit of rage, he stormed back to his chambers with sword in hand. I had just emerged from postpartum confinement, pitifully weak and vulnerable. I watched helplessly as he beheaded my son. My screams turning hoarse changed nothing. He ran me through with his sword, and with his dying breath he snarled at me, "You wretched woman, if it weren't for you holding me back, I'd be the one sitting on the throne now." In utter despair, I perished by the hand of the one who once shared my bed. Perhaps even the heavens took pity, for they granted me a chance to start anew. I didn't argue, just lowered my eyes and nodded meekly. It's such an honor for my sister to catch the crown prince's eye. I'm truly happy for you, having been reborn. I wanted nothing to do with either of them. Seeing the tension, an elder quickly stepped forward with a conciliatory smile. Since the crown prince chose Jessa, does Clove have someone special in mind? It was just an offhand remark, after all. Everyone knew my heart belonged to the prince. How could I possibly fancy anyone else? Yet to everyone's surprise, I pointed straight at the second Prince Eli standing at the end of the line. I want him. The room fell dead silent. Even the usually confident Damien paled, scowling at me with knitted brows. Though Eli was also a prince, his low-born mother set him apart. Rumor has it he was born from a nameless she-dragon the Dragon King casually favored in a drunken stupor. His mother died in childbirth, leaving him an outcast among the dragonkin. Prince Damien and his cronies often bullied him, unlike my own noble standing. Choosing him, that's downright delusional. The whispers around me grew louder. Had I lost my senses over the crown prince's betrothal to my sister? Was I giving up on myself? The murmurs from the crowd grew increasingly improper, yet I turned a deaf ear to them all. With resolve, I walked up to Eli and took his hand. Would you be with me? The man's gloomy expression melted away like June snow, though a trace of wariness still lingered in his eyes, yet he turned to me with a smile. Why waste your time on someone as untalented as me? You clearly have better options. If this is just to spite the crown prince, there's no need. I covered his mouth with my hand, leaving only those unfairly beautiful eyes blinking at me. I chuckled softly, leaning close to his ear. Who cares about those two? Choosing you was my own willing decision. How improper. Before we could even whisper sweet nothings to each other, Damien suddenly flung his arms and shouted. Startled, I stumbled and fell straight into Eli's arms. His body stiffened, yet he instinctively held me tighter. Careful, the two found themselves in an unexpectedly intimate embrace. Damien flushed crimson with anger, though he held no affection for me, yet in our past life we'd been wed for years. Now seeing me in another's arms. A bizarre sense of being cuckolded twisted his voice. How disgraceful, carrying on with a man in public before even getting married. Is this the so-called Phoenix clan's family values? Frankly unimpressive, I frowned, just about to retort, but Eli stepped in front of me. The Phoenix clan is known for its simple, honest customs. Their women are particularly bold and righteous, traits even His Majesty personally praised. Brother! Are you implying some grievance against His Majesty with those words? Damien's face twisted in disgust when they invoked the Dragon King's authority against him. He shot a venomous glare and snorted in contempt. Of course not, but Eli showed no intention of letting him off. Continuing the taunt, Clove is my betrothed wife. Whatever we do is perfectly natural. If the crown prince sees filth everywhere, perhaps it's his vision that's tainted. Right now I just wanted to give him a standing ovation. In my past life, I had little interaction with this reclusive second prince. I thought he was just a weakling, but who knew he could be so sharp-tongued? He left Damien speechless, who stormed off in a huff with Jessa. I knew all too well what a petty and vindictive man he was. Eli humiliated me in front of so many people today. He won't get away with this. She tugged at his sleeve with concern. You stood up to him like that today. He'll probably come after you later. I'm sorry for dragging you into this. I was about to lower my head when a pair of hands firmly grasped me. I'm the one who should apologize. Had I been of higher status, you wouldn't have suffered such humiliation today. It was the first time I'd ever heard anyone say such words to me, too. In the past, Damien would constantly complain about my lack of noble lineage. For a moment I was at a loss for words. Disarmed by his comforting gaze, suddenly it dawned on me, being with him wasn't such a bad thing after all. On the day of the crown prince's wedding, I arrived at the venue bright and early. Watching my sister strut toward me in her bridal gown, I curtsied as protocol demanded, yet she deliberately kept me waiting, leisurely sipping the tea her maid handed her. My knees ached as I remained half-crouched, sweat beading on my forehead while my body began swaying. One more moment of this torture and I'd collapse to the floor. She feigned surprise, covering her mouth as she gestured for me to rise. Oh dear sister, how forgetful of me. You should have told me you were coming sooner. You won't hold it against me, will you? Taking the crown princess position you've always dreamed of. Her words dripped with false apology, her face betraying not a shred of remorse. Honestly, she and Damien are a match made in hell, two-faced snakes perfect for each other. My expression remained unchanged. You're my own sister, and today's your wedding. Of course I'm genuinely happy for you, but dear, your hairpin seems a bit crooked today. It doesn't do justice to your beauty. I clicked my tongue in feigned regret, covering my mouth with a dramatic sigh. Sure enough, panic flashed across her face as she ordered her maid to fetch a mirror. One wing of her hairpin had somehow gone askew without her noticing. For dragonkind. Omens hold grave significance. This was terribly inauspicious. In a fit of rage, she grabbed her maid and pinched her viciously. "You wretch, why didn't you warn me sooner? What do we do now? The ceremony is about to begin." Then her eyes fell upon the gift box in my hands, and her face instantly lit up with delight. Inside lay an exquisitely crafted hairpin, dazzling with vibrant colors. "It's infinitely prettier than what she's wearing on her head." She immediately snatched up the hairpin inside. "What's this, sis? How could you keep such a treasure hidden from me?" I pretended reluctance and reached to take it back. "Sister, this was meant as a gift for the queen. If you take it, how shall I explain myself? You know my husband's standing in the clan has never been high. These treasures took me such pains to acquire." I watched her reaction as I spoke. Her eyes lit up with greedy delight. How could she resist such a chance to show off while putting me in a difficult position? Without another word, she pinned the hairpin in place. "Sister, I'm the queen's own daughter-in-law. It's just a hairpin. Do you really think she'd begrudge me that?" I feigned a sigh, but she cut me off mid-sentence and draped the bridal veil over her head. With her maid's support, she stormed back to the wedding ceremony, throwing a final warning at me. "I call you sister out of courtesy. Know your place. I'm the crown princess now. Taking your things is an honor. Don't you dare dream above your station." Watching her swagger away, I could see Damien busy making toasts in the distance. A smile finally escaped me. Eli had appeared beside me unnoticed, his post-marriage tied-back hair making him look even more dashing. I couldn't tear my eyes away. How embarrassing, considering we'd already been intimate as husband and wife. My face was burning hot as he asked me with a smile, "What are you up to?" I shook my head, gazing at the two figures in the distance. Then I placed my hand in his palm. "How about I give you a special gift, a wedding present unlike any other?" The wedding ceremony officially began only after the Dragon King and Queen took their seats. Damien and I naturally weren't entitled to seats, so we found a spot with a good view where we wouldn't be disturbed. Newlyweds are so lovey-dovey, they can't bear to be apart for even a moment. This is the first time in both my lifetimes I've experienced such sweetness. Before us, Jessa and the Crown Prince have completed their wedding rites and served tea to their parents. Only one final step remains. The bride must unveil herself to present the new Crown Princess to the assembly, perhaps the future Dragon Queen. Was Damien already fantasizing about his coronation? He couldn't wait to lift her bridal veil, but the moment the veil fell, revealing Jessa's blushing face, the entire hall held its breath. The Dragon Queen herself rose from her throne in fury. Unaware of the truth, Jessa still believed everyone was stunned by her beauty. She glanced shyly at Damien. "Why are you silent, my lord?" But it wasn't the dumbstruck Damien who spoke first, it was the Dragon Queen. "How dare you, while I still draw breath, you flaunt the phoenix hairpin reserved solely for my station." Jessa felt the blood freeze in her veins at these words. The Dragon King's expression darkened further, though his wrath was directed at Damien, so eager to claim my throne. "Shall you parade in my robes through the streets tomorrow? Don't think I can't see through your little schemes. You're not my only son." Damien thudded to the ground with a crash, frantically kowtowing. "Father, I truly didn't know this would happen. She wasn't wearing this hair ornament when she left this morning." "So you're saying she deliberately changed this hair ornament just to show off in front of me and the Queen Mother, to put us in our place?" The Dragon King grew angrier with each word, slamming the table with earth-shaking force. Beads of sweat rolled down Damien's forehead as he immediately turned to Jessa, demanding an explanation. Jessa, who had never witnessed such a scene before, collapsed weakly to the ground as her legs gave way. Then suddenly remembering something, she whirled around and pointed straight at me. "It's her. She's the one who flaunted the Queen Mother's hairpiece right before my eyes. That's why I took it." Every eye in the room instantly focused on me. Unfazed, I stepped forward with measured grace and offered a respectful curtsy. This was indeed brought by me. I had it specially crafted by artisans days ago. Upon hearing Her Majesty favored such things, who'd have thought the Crown Princess would take a fancy to it? My explanations fell on deaf ears. It was wrested from me by force. This daughter-in-law is truly inadequate. With that, I produced a handkerchief to dab my tears. The very picture of wounded innocence, hilarious, as if I don't know how to play the victim too. Seeing this, Jessa's maidservant immediately fell to her knees. "This humble servant can testify," but the second prince's consort objected, and the Crown Princess outright used her status to intimidate her. She claimed that as the future Dragon Queen, this item rightfully belonged to her. Never did she imagine her own maidservant would betray her. Jessa was so furious she started spewing venom. "You bitch, how dare you spout such nonsense?" In her mind, she was the supreme mistress whom no one dared to disobey, yet it never occurred to her that she'd been treating them with nothing but abuse. They'd long held grievances against her. This domineering demeanor bore no resemblance to a crown princess. Drawing hushed whispers from the surrounding guests, it all boiled down to criticism of the Dragon King's lax household discipline. How could such a woman be welcomed into their family? The Dragon King's expression grew increasingly grim. He finally slammed the table. Enough. The chaotic scene fell silent instantly. The Dragon King's commanding presence alone carried authority. Slowly approaching Damien, the elder looked down at his overreaching son with disdain. "This is the carefully chosen bride of yours. How could such a woman possibly lead our dragon clan? Evidently, your judgment is severely lacking. You're hereby relieved of your crown prince duties. Go reflect on your failures." These measured yet merciless words struck Damien like a mortal blow. All those years of planning ruined by a mere hairpin. My body swayed unsteadily. Instinctively, I cast a pleading glance toward the Dragon Queen. "Mother," yet the queen's gaze remained fixed on me, her lips curling in satisfaction. I only mentioned it in passing that day. I'm touched you actually remembered. This pattern is truly exquisite. I can see you've put tremendous effort into it." My candid response greatly pleased the Dragon Queen. Even her gaze toward Eli softened noticeably. The wedding was hastily concluded amidst this little incident. Rumor has it that the sounds of shouting, beating, and shattering teacups echoed from Damien's mansion all night long. When we saw Jessa the next day, all her former arrogance had vanished. She was bundled up in layers of clothing despite the sweltering July heat. Only you could tolerate this. Ignoring his murderous glare, I leisurely swirled the teacup in my hand. The world only sees Damien's youth and promise, unaware of his explosive temper, treating his wife like dirt. When we were alone, he'd hit and curse at me whenever he pleased. It was truly suffering beyond words. In my past life, his abuse left me emaciated to skin and bones. Now, Jessa has finally fulfilled her long-cherished dream of marrying him. Are you satisfied now? Not just me, the other imperial consorts at the table were even more sarcastic. The crown prince certainly dotes on his wife. Has he dressed her in every robe from the palace wardrobe? Dear sister, your memory fails you. He's no longer the crown prince. Just a titular grand prince without real standing. Oh, absolutely. My memory's like a sieve these days. Do forgive me, former crown princess. The battles between women are no less fierce than those among men. Their barbed exchange was enough to make the haughty Jessa wish the ground would swallow her whole, but she brought this upon herself. Her arrogance during her days as crown princess knew no bounds, made enemies of quite a few people. Fuming, she clenched her handkerchief tightly while shooting daggers at everyone present with her almond-shaped eyes. Yet not a single word could escape her lips. After barely sitting through the time it takes for an incense stick to burn, she excused herself citing illness. Somehow, she staggered a few steps before collapsing face first onto the ground. Cold sweat instantly beaded on her forehead. No matter how much she disliked her daughter-in-law, she didn't want any accidents happening on her watch. The Dragon Queen urgently summoned the royal physician, and the crowd formed a circle around them. Having experienced childbirth myself, I recognized her symptoms and began forming a quiet suspicion. As if confirming my thoughts, the physician knelt on the ground. "Congratulations, Your Majesty, the crown princess is with child. The pulse shows stable signs. She appears to be about 2 months along." After the imperial physician finished speaking, not a single face in the crowd showed any sign of joy. Instead, their expressions turned scornful. The couple had only been engaged and married for a month, yet she was already 2 months pregnant. Clearly, they'd been intimate before the wedding. Jessa didn't overthink it, simply overjoyed at her pregnancy. Her hands kept caressing her belly, yet her face showed none of a mother's joy, only greed. Their crumbling relationship was barely patched up by the child's arrival. They were inseparable, seen together everywhere like a pair of lovebirds. To Damien, the child in her womb was his golden ticket to the Dragon King's throne. The way he gazed at Jessa's belly carried none of a father's tenderness. His covetous stare practically drooled over her pregnancy as if beholding a mountain of gold. That day, I'd just returned from the garden with my girlfriends when we literally bumped into Jessa and Damien. Jessa visibly pregnant. I tried to slip away unnoticed, but Jessa spotted me instantly. "Sis, what are you doing here? It's been ages. I've missed you so much." With her laying it on that thick, how could I possibly play dumb? Feigning surprise, I walked over and beamed at her belly, yet I kept my distance, not daring to get too close. Obviously, she's a walking hazard right now. Who'd dare mess with her? Sensing my hesitation, she deliberately waddled closer with her pregnant belly. "Sis, feel it quick. Is it a boy or a girl? Honestly, I'd love either, but motherhood, such bittersweet joy." Then she theatrically covered her mouth in mock surprise, offering repeated apologies. "Oh dear, why did I bring this up? Sister, it must be painful for you to still be childless. Don't fret too much, sister. Everyone knows the second prince is frail. With enough nourishment, he might still sire an earth dragon. Earth dragons are the lowliest among dragonkind. For commoners to bear one is one thing, but if I were to birth one, it'd become a laughingstock across all realms." Damien sneered from the sidelines. A mud dragon would be tolerable, but to spawn a counterfeit dragon, that'd be too shameful to live with. When you mentioned our child from the past life, the mask finally cracked on my face. Her gaze burned with fury when she looked at him. No matter what, that was his own flesh and blood. I carried this child for 10 arduous months, though their talents may be modest, yet that chubby, rosy-cheeked darling was mercilessly slain by his hand, even in his dying moments. He looked at me with tearful eyes, begging me to save him. How dare he bring that up? The memory of my child dying in my arms was too much to bear. I stood up and glared at him. Whatever is born will be my treasure. Only beasts would commit filicide, even if it's truly born defective. I'm fully capable of protecting it myself. Spare me your concern. This time I came prepared. Though Eli isn't some ambiguous half-blood like Damien. But dragonkin we remain. Even an earthworm hatchling would still be our child. I'll never let anything happen to my child. Consumed by rage, I moved closer to the pair. A flash of malice crossed Jess's eyes before she suddenly reached up to grab me. The lotus pond lay just behind us. I know exactly what she's up to. Never thought Damien would actually condone this. This person hasn't changed one bit. He'll exploit anything that serves his purpose, whether it's your own child or your pregnant wife. We were getting dangerously close to the lotus pond, on the verge of falling in. A sudden powerful force yanked me backward into an embrace. Splash! Jessa fell into the water alone, flailing desperately. Help! Help! I'm truly baffled by what kind of moral bankruptcy would make people ignore someone drowning, for they all pretended to be preoccupied with other matters. It wasn't until Damien jumped down that the completely exhausted Jessa was finally pulled up. Meanwhile, Eli held me tightly in his arms, whispering reassurances. Are you hurt? What happened? Did she harm you? For days after our wedding, he maintained that same detached expression. He treated me exceptionally well, yet I always felt uneasy inside. I sensed he was only with me because I made a suitable wife, not out of genuine affection. This was the first time I'd ever seen him lose control. His eyes burned crimson, radiating an inescapable aura of violence. I have no doubt that if he found even a scratch on me, he'd charge at those two without hesitation. I'd barely managed to calm him down when Damien stormed over to confront me. Jess has been nothing but genuine with you, yet you keep giving her hell. Do you think I'm dead or something? How dare you push her into the pool when she's pregnant? What evil are you plotting? I was itching to go out there and tear him apart. But before I could say anything, the girl walking beside me stepped forward. Do you take us for fools? Clove was standing perfectly fine here. It was her who dragged her into the water. Are you two rabid dogs, biting everyone in sight? Damien's face darkened at those words. He wanted to reprimand them, but realized he no longer had the standing to do so. Left standing there awkwardly, his gaze turned into daggers hurled at me. Eli behind me was barely containing his towering rage. To him, I meant everything, if I hadn't desperately held him back. Damien would have been knocked out cold by now. Just as we were locked in a staring standoff, the Dragon Queen and King arrived in haste. She wrinkled her nose in disgust at the sight of Jessa's disheveled appearance. What on earth happened here? Thinking her protector had arrived, Jessa rushed forward with eager excitement. Your Majesty, I was simply enjoying myself here when my sister tried to push me into the water. I'm terrified. Mother, you must stand up for me. The over-the-top acting left everyone speechless. I twitched the corner of my mouth. Why would I harm you? Do you realize this is a capital offense, committed in full public view? Do I look tired of living? My arguments were rock solid, while hers were full of holes. After much deliberation, she could only stammer while clutching her belly. This is just your jealousy talking. You're barren, so you'd sabotage my pregnancy, sister. What have I ever done to deserve this? All I want is to deliver this child safely. Is that so wrong? Her gaze lingered on my flat abdomen. Seeing how far this conversation had gone, there was no point in keeping up the pretense. I bowed respectfully to the Dragon King and Queen. Your child is actually 3 months pregnant. I remained silent earlier, fearing the pregnancy might be unstable, but now that my sister has spoken thus, I've nothing left to conceal. The Dragon Queen's eyes lit up with excitement when she heard I was pregnant. Such wonderful news. Why didn't you tell me sooner? You silly girl. Eli shouldn't be dragging you around in this scorching heat. What if you get heatstroke? She couldn't stop beaming as she spoke, while the two people behind her stood utterly dumbfounded. Before leaving, the Dragon Queen cast an icy glare at the pair, since venturing out seems so perilous. You shall remain confined to your chambers from this day forth. No one leaves without my express permission. My belly grew more pronounced with each passing day. With the Crown Prince position vacant, the dragon clans are locked in fierce disputes over the succession. The aging Dragon King must make this crucial decision without further delay, though Eli enjoys overwhelming support within the clan, given his undeniable competence. The clan could never hope to find another of such exceptional caliber, but he was shackled by his status, the lowborn son of a servant. He wasn't fit for great responsibilities. Though Damien was mediocre in ability, his noble lineage stood firm, and the imperial consort was with child. Perhaps she'd bear a royal heir worthy of the dragon's blood. The two groups were locked in a heated dispute. Yet Eli remained completely unfazed, even as our home became the busiest place in town. He still found time to feed me grapes and push me on the swing. I was actually starting to feel embarrassed. Eli, am I holding you back too much? If I could bear you a black dragon, no one would ever question your lineage again. It was just an offhand remark, but to my surprise, he set down the prenatal medicine with solemn gravity. Clove, any child of ours, no matter their gifts, will be my most treasured possession. You are my family, not weapons for my pursuit of the throne. His gaze was resolute and earnest, with the faintest glimmer of tears. It made the jest on the tip of my tongue die unspoken. Some would kill without hesitation when burdened by children. Some say I'm his one and only wife. Eli, I knew I was right about you. Just as we stood there in silent exchange, Lady Wang's maid suddenly rushed in. Emergency, the crown princess has gone into premature labor. Her life hangs by a thread. The baby still hasn't arrived, and today the skies are filled with magpies. This is an omen of a divine beast's arrival. Could she be? Before she could finish, Jess's personal maid entered the room. Gone was the timid demeanor from days prior. She seemed completely transformed. Even her voice carried newfound strength. Our royal consort insists on having her elder sister by her side during childbirth for comfort. You must come with me. This was never about Jessa wanting my company. She's clearly waiting to humiliate me the moment that child is born. But what could possibly matter more than the dragon lineage's heir? When I arrived outside her chambers, both the Dragon King and Queen were already present. Damien paced excitedly outside the shop. Perfect, this litter came through at just the right moment. Let's see you try to compete with me now. I understood how much this litter meant to him. Jess's screams still echoed in the room as the waiting crowd grew restless. A newborn's cry pierced through the air. Damien barged past the midwife in frantic haste. Jessa, what is it? What did we get? Is it a black dragon? The midwife trembled as she clutched a small bundle, collapsing to her knees. The royal consort has given birth to a snake. Those few words sent shockwaves through everyone present. Damien cast aside all decorum, shoving her aside to seize the child. Such fair and delicate features, yet with a long serpent's tail trailing behind. A genuine serpent folk through and through. My mud dragon may have been lowly before, but at least it carried draconic blood. Now it's been distilled to pure essence. 5. Damien nearly choked with rage, seeing nothing but green above his head. This was his last shot at a comeback. Now everything's gone. He'll definitely lose the tribe's support. A surge of rage burned through his mind, making him nearly charge in to kill Jessa on the spot. This can't be. This child isn't mine. I'm a dragonborn. As he teetered on the edge of breakdown, the Dragon Queen seized Eli's wrist with sudden determination. Her face paled when she saw the crimson birthmark. So it's true, you're my real son. It turned out that after the Dragon King drunkenly favored the palace maid, she knew her days were numbered. During childbirth, she risked her life to swap the Dragon Queen's baby with her own. Thus Damien usurped Eli's position for centuries. The true crown prince was even bullied, living in utter misery. Fortunately, his abilities remained intact. If the Dragon Queen hadn't treated Damien's wounds and noticed the missing birthmark on his hand, they would never have sent investigators to uncover the truth of that year. I fear their true identities may never come to light. No wonder the Dragon Queen has shown Eli and me such kindness. She suspected our origins all along. Now she finally knows which one is her trueborn son. Tears welling in her eyes, the Dragon Queen clutched his hand. My son. It's all my fault for failing to protect you back then. That vile woman took advantage of my negligence. Don't worry, my child. I'll make it up to you. The throne will rightfully be yours. The Dragon King was utterly shocked upon learning the truth of what had transpired. Heartbroken by his son's suffering, he surrounded both Eli and me with his presence. The revelation shattered Damien completely. His imperial dreams crumbled. He remained nothing but a half-dragon, half-serpent abomination. Eli, the one he despised most, had transformed into a noble-blooded true dragon. Even after rebirth, he faced the same bitter end. The blow was so devastating that he staggered, then suddenly noticed me standing nearby with my swollen belly. You wretched woman, don't you dare abandon me to chase your own riches and glory. Let's see who'll still support you when you can't even bear a child. With that, he lunged desperately at my belly. Just as he was about to touch me, Eli dodged and sent him flying with a powerful kick. He rolled on the ground a few times before coughing up a mouthful of blood. Eli had clearly been holding back for too long. That kick was delivered with full force, but I was still shocked by all this, especially with his sudden move. The sudden labor pains triggered premature delivery. Fortunately, the midwife was still present, and everyone hastily carried me inside. Eli turned pale with worry. clutching my hand desperately as the midwife gently advised, "Your Highness shouldn't enter, the birthing chamber brings ill fortune." But Eli couldn't care less about all that. After drifting through half his life, he'd finally found a home. Dragon kings and queens meant nothing. If anything happened to me, what would become of him? Seeing how inseparable we were, they had no choice but to let him tag along. The Dragon King and Queen paced anxiously outside the gate. Suddenly, a great flock of magpies descended from the sky, circling above the palace. Their melodious calls filled the air in unison. A piercing shriek erupted from within the hall. "It's the Divine Dragon. Her Majesty has given birth to the Divine Dragon. I was born with the legendary golden phoenix physique. Any worthy mate would have sired pure-blooded descendants with me, yet Damien turned out to be a half-breed, squandering my divine heritage, were it not for my impeccable lineage. We couldn't even have produced that mud dragon whelp. Now that Eli and I have joined forces, our baby is fair-skinned and adorable, covered in dragon-like scales, looking like a Lucky Charm doll, most remarkably gifted." Started calling family members right after the confinement month. Grandpas, grandmas, daddies, and mommies. The little one never stops calling. The Dragon Queen and King couldn't get enough of the little one, their faces stiff from constant smiling. Then and there, he declared his retirement from dragon affairs due to old age, passing the Dragon King title to Eli. Now he spends his days playing with the children in the palace, enjoying his golden years. As for Eli, he's swamped with work, yet still manages to nuzzle against my neck under the covers every night like an affectionate kitten. Jessa couldn't accept giving birth to a snake. Upon learning the truth, she hurled vicious insults at the now monstrous Damien, beaten to the ground by Damien. She fled back to her maternal clan under cover of night. Her mind began unraveling. She'd sit beneath trees daily, caught in cycles of hysterical laughter and weeping. Damien claimed she'd actually birthed a black dragon, not a mere serpent. Damien completely lost his grip on reality, going so far as to rally a mob in a deranged attempt to stage a rebellion. That ragtag bunch couldn't even make a ripple before being swiftly crushed. He was thrown into the Imperial dungeon, and I actually went to see him there, sitting slumped on the floor, reeking of filth and defeat. Gone was the dashing spirit of his younger days. He scrambled to his feet when he saw me enter. "You came for me. I knew you couldn't forget me. Quick, get me out of here." I couldn't help but admire his sheer audacity. Anyone in their right mind would steer clear of him. He tried to lunge at me, but the chains behind him kept him pinned to the ground. All he could do was glare at me with pure hatred. Meanwhile, I just casually examined my fingernails. What a pity. Did you ever imagine this day would come when you murdered me and our child? His face froze when I mentioned our past lives, then he began pounding the ground wildly. "I knew it. You're a reincarnator too, you bitch. Why are you helping him? I'm your rightful husband. How dare you side with outsiders? I'll kill you. I swear I'll kill you." He writhed on the ground but couldn't muster the strength to rise. Defeated, he remained slumped on the dirt. His wound reopened during the struggle, sending trails of blood trickling down his forehead, dripping onto the ground, a complete mess. I smiled faintly. "Your life has reached its end, but mine is just beginning. You won't die, because I'll repay every ounce of suffering you made me endure in our past life. Enjoy the taste of your own medicine." With that, I strode out of the stinking dungeon. At my signal, the guards filed in one after another. The screams inside could be heard clearly from miles away. The sound gradually faded away. They must have been tortured to exhaustion. The metallic scent of blood hung heavy in the air. Fresh air greeted us outside the cell. The maid placed the giggling child in my arms, and I gazed at my laughing son. A wave of warmth flooded my heart. How wonderful my life is. Story 2. On the 15th day of the scorching heat, with temperatures outside reaching 48 degrees Celsius, people were gripped by the fear of an impending apocalypse. Desperately stockpiling supplies, water and electricity were now being supplied only during specific times, and the news urged everyone to hoard goods and stay indoors. Outside, the grass and trees had turned yellow and wilted under the relentless sun, and the streets were deserted. However, today my house was bustling with activity, as I had notified the entire village that they could buy anything from my family's store at the original price. Early in the morning, villagers from nearby had gathered around, jostling and shoving at the storefront in an effort to get to the front. Some cursed loudly and even came to blows. I kept the door firmly shut, hearing the anxious knocking and swearing from outside. Didn't she say we could buy things? Why isn't she opening the door, with supplies so precious now? Maybe she's having second thoughts. I knew it was too good to be true that someone would sell their survival goods. Let's just break down the door and take what we need. Hurry up and open the door, girl. It's too hot, and it won't be good if we all overheat out here. Thankfully, I had installed a sturdy door beforehand to prevent theft, which kept them at bay as long as they didn't bring tools to smash it down. So I felt safe enough to eat a few small buns for breakfast inside. Just when the crowd outside was about to break down the door, the village had arrived. I then went to open the door. Everyone looked greedily at the array of goods on the shelves, but the law still held enough sway to prevent them from outright theft in my presence. Eventually, organized by the village committee, everyone left satisfied with their purchases. By the time the sun was high in the sky, everything in my store had been sold, even some old shoe brushes that had been sitting around for years. In this uncontrollable heat, money had become the least useful thing. Tangible goods were the only real security. As I was happily counting the money, a van pulled up at my doorstep. My parents and younger brother climbed out, dusty and weary. They were stunned by the empty shelves in the store. The village head, full of praise, complimented my father. "Your daughter really knows the bigger picture. She voluntarily offered her supplies to help the village through this hardship. She's a good kid." After the village head left with the last bag of rice and a bucket of water, my parents were completely dumbfounded. My father, in disbelief, asked, "What happened here? Where are all our things?" "I sold them," I replied cheerfully. Many people in the village hadn't stored any supplies, and I was worried about everyone. "So I sold all the stuff from the store." My father turned pale with anger, and my mother, in a flash of fury, rushed up and slapped me hard across the face, pointing at my nose. She scolded, "Have you lost your mind? What are we supposed to eat and drink now?" I touched my face, a cold smirk in my heart. What? So it was okay for them to play the sane in their time, but not for me. The range of the red high temperature warnings in the news is expanding. Some vigilant people have started stockpiling supplies at home. Doomsday declarations are also swirling wildly online. Because I run a small store in my hometown village, I am never short of supplies. However, my store has also attracted unwanted attention. My parents, who live far away in the provincial capital, called to inform me. They said they would return to the countryside in a few days as the city was too hot. They also instructed me to hide our household supplies well and not to give them to anyone else. I obediently locked the gate and stayed indoors all day. During the day, familiar voices of uncles and aunts pleaded at the door, asking me to sell them some food and water. Thinking of my parents' advice, I painfully refused. At night, I could hear rustling sounds at my front door. I don't know if it was because my new door was very sturdy, or if the people outside hadn't reached their breaking point. After a while of unsuccessful tampering, they left. I hid in the corner of my bed, hugging myself, constantly praying for my parents to come back soon. On the 15th day of the heat wave, my parents finally returned with my younger brother. I just breathed a sigh of relief. In front of the village secretary and the villagers who came to our door, they fiercely scolded me. They said I grew up in the village but knew nothing about giving back, hiding supplies and not sharing them with everyone. They accused me of intentionally wanting to hurt people. After that, they sold some of the pre-prepared supplies to the villagers. My parents received gratitude from the village, while I was branded as ungrateful. Later, as the high temperatures persisted longer, our supplies dwindled. My parents kicked me out to find food and water. As soon as I stepped outside, I was beaten to death by Brant, who harbored resentment. "Damn bitch. Back then I begged you to sell me something and you stubbornly refused. Now I'll make sure you're dead." Lying on the ground, barely alive, I saw my mother's figure from afar. I raised my hand towards her with all my might. She paused for a moment, then quickly turned and walked away. The final blow hit my head, and everything went dark, unexpectedly. After I died, my body felt light, floating around the village. I watched as the villagers became increasingly vicious, doing whatever it took for a bit of water and food, smashing, looting, and even killing. Just when I thought humanity might be doomed, rain finally fell from heaven. 6 months after the high temperatures began, the nation successfully resolved the crisis. Artificial rain cooled the earth slowly, everyone survived, and life could return to normal. After resolving the heat crisis, the government began a thorough investigation of those who committed crimes during this period. Those who had recklessly killed, thinking it was the end of the world, were imprisoned. Brant could not escape the punishment of the law. My dear parents and younger brother, thanks to the well-stocked store, lived quite comfortably. They even signed a letter of forgiveness for me at the tearful request of Brant's family. I was furious, and when I opened my eyes again, I had been reborn, I think. Perhaps heaven intended for me to seek revenge personally, in this new life. I returned to a few days before the start of the extreme heat, and I discovered I had a special ability that would allow me to safely survive the terrifying heat. I had a small space, although not large, about 20 cubic meters, but it was enough for me to stockpile supplies and endure those 6 months. I quickly ordered a large batch of grains, oils, bread, fast food, and bottled water under the guise of restocking, urging the distributor to deliver them promptly during the downtime. I drove to the county town. At the supermarket, I picked up some items I hadn't tried before, like instant noodles, self-heating hot pots, and various flavors of ice cream. Since time stands still in my space, nothing I put in there changes. I quickly bought a lot of cakes, milk tea, fruits, and even got several ready-made dishes packed from restaurants. I also bought a few large rice cookers and freezers. The rice is cooked directly and whenever I want to eat. I just serve it in a bowl along with the dishes, and it's as if it's freshly made. I quickly filled the large freezer with ice blocks to use for cooling later. Once I had enough food prepared, I turned around and went to the pharmacy to stock up on some medicines: cold medicine, anti-inflammatory antibiotics, ibuprofen, and herbal tonic. After thinking it over, I also bought some books at the bookstore. Even though the internet service was fine despite the heat, I wanted to be prepared for any potential disruptions later. Having these books would also help pass the time. By the time I had everything ready, my little space was packed full. I returned to my small village, just waiting for the high temperatures to hit. As the temperature continued to rise, my father called me just like he did in the previous generation, saying they would be back soon. I listened as they instructed me to guard the supplies, nodding in agreement here. I immediately informed the village secretary there. I said I was willing to sell things to everyone to help us all get through this tough time together. The village secretary was overjoyed and quickly arranged for someone to notify the villagers to come to my store in 3 days to buy supplies. He would use these few days to organize the store and see how to distribute things most fairly. The village secretary praised me profusely, saying I was the most grateful person and that he would report my good deeds. I just smiled, not really caring. In this life, I'm focused on settling scores and revenging wrongs. So now that I've sold the supplies and seen the stern faces of my parents, I'm quite pleased inside. Listening to my mother's curses and accusations, I covered my face, pretending to be puzzled. Although we've sold the household items, you must have stocked up on supplies when you returned from the provincial city, right? My mother was so angry she nearly slapped me again. That's for your brother, you don't get a share. My brother seriously added, yeah, that was bought with my money, according to our family rules. If you didn't contribute financially, you're not entitled to a share. My parents nodded in agreement as usual. I argued back, you haven't earned money either, it's still mom and dad's money, so I should have a share. My mother exploded, you've already moved out. Our money has nothing to do with you. Your brother is still studying. Whatever we earn is his. My father agreed wholeheartedly. Exactly, that's the rule I've taught you since you were young. The so-called rule in my family is supposed to be gender equality. My hometown is a remote rural area, where the mentality of favoring males over females is severe, but my parents were educated and considered themselves enlightened, despising the local gender bias. When I was born, a girl, I wasn't what they hoped for. Despite the advice from friends and relatives, my parents didn't give me a name that reflected waiting for a male child, which they thought would be ridiculous, so they named me Sue, believing it suited me well. When my brother was born, they felt even stronger about gender equality. If I won an award, the prize had to be shared with my brother. If my brother did something wrong, I had to be punished along with him. They called it fairness and justice, which they believed would foster a good relationship between us siblings. Just after I graduated, we received news that our grandmother back home was unwell. My parents thought, since they believed in gender equality, so it was only right that I returned to my hometown to fulfill my filial duties. I ended up staying there for 3 years. To make a living, I rented a place and opened a small store. After I started earning money, my parents insisted on gender equality and said I should also financially support them every month. They wanted me to send money home every month. However, my younger brother was still studying and was exempt from this. My parents also mentioned that when my brother gets married in the future, I would have to contribute financially. Gender equality means you and your brother should each pay half the expenses for marrying a bride. Of course, my parents maintained this superficial equality. Over the years, after I handed over my earnings, they didn't inquire about my remaining money, but at the same time, they didn't allow me to have any say in the money they spent on my brother. In my past life, I was brainwashed by these arguments and obediently followed them. Living this life again, I finally saw through their true intentions. Seeing my brother dressed in branded clothes from a young age and well-nourished, I realized how much my parents' idea of gender equality was skewed. Such gender equality was nothing but a tool to exploit women under the guise of fairness. I started to protest when I saw they didn't want to involve me. I don't care, I'm also your daughter. Now that everything in the store is sold, you have to take care of me too. My brother immediately disapproved, having brought very little with him when he left the provincial city, considering there was still plenty of food in my store. There was no need to buy more. Little did they know, I had impulsively sold everything, leading to our current predicament. With the food they brought in the car barely enough for the three of them, how could they afford to share with me? My brother firmly stated, "No, I can't share with you. It's only fair." My father agreed, "That's right, we can't break the family rules. This is the family tradition I've established, and it must be passed down." Thinking it over, likely worried I'd end up staying at home and needing food, my father suggested, "Our old house is at the back of the village. You can move there. We'll stay here temporarily with your mother and brother." He also emphasized, "This is for your own good. Gender equality means it wouldn't be fair for you to live with us and depend on others." Pretending to be upset, I agreed, "Fine, but don't regret this." After that, I left in a huff. The old house was located at a secluded spot at the back of the village. It had been vacant since my grandmother passed away last year. Fortunately, aside from being a bit run down, it was still habitable. I checked the well in the yard, and whether it was because it was well dug or for some other reason, there was still some water at the bottom. I quickly drew some water to clean up the house, then filled all available containers with well water. I planned to hide out here for a while. With the supplies I had, I could last these 6 months until the national heat issue was resolved, perhaps because I was well prepared. My days in the old house went smoothly. I had a variety of food stored, allowing me to enjoy balanced meals every day. During boring days, I'd hide in my room with snacks and fruits prepared. Watching movies, reading books, and enjoying snacks and fruits made my days quite delightful. A few days after moving to the old house, perhaps grateful for my earlier decision to sell the supplies, some villagers came to visit me, bringing a bit of food. They also expressed sympathy for me, complaining that my parents were too harsh in throwing their daughter out to fend for herself. Pretending to be upset, I hinted that there were actually still some supplies left in the store's warehouse. Everything had been put away by my parents. My aunts, with shifty eyes, subtly inquired if there were any other hiding spots in the store. Pretending to be naive, I informed them one by one. Currently, everyone's home supplies are quite ample, so no one is thinking about committing crimes. But once the food runs out, it's a different story. The evil in human nature is always unpredictable. Soon, the temperature soared to over 50 degrees Celsius. Unless absolutely necessary, no one dared to go outside. At that temperature, just staying outside for a little while could cause heat stroke. Everyone tried their best to stay indoors, praying for this horrific nightmare to end quickly. After 2 months of high temperatures, the old house was cool in summer and warm in winter. I found a room shielded from direct sunlight to use as a bedroom. Outside, the sky was cloudless with the blazing sun suspended high. The ground was cracked like a tortoise shell, steaming and rolling with heat. I hid in my room with a bucket full of large ice blocks taken from the space freezer in front of me. The ice bucket emitted a faint coolness. I leaned in to enjoy the rare relief. I also took out some cold drinks from the space and started eating a watermelon with a spoon. I was so comfortable that I sighed with relief. Suddenly, I heard someone knocking on my door. I quickly stashed everything back into the space and, feigning weakness, went to the door to ask, "Who's out there?" "Sue, open up. It's your parents." I was stunned, not expecting them to come in such hot weather. I opened the door to find my parents, whom I hadn't seen in 2 months. They looked noticeably thinner than when they had just returned to the village. My mom, sizing me up, said cheerfully, "Sue, Mom and Dad came to see if you're doing well." As she spoke, she pushed past me into the house. My parents looked around the dilapidated old house while searching everywhere. The old house had few pieces of furniture. It was mostly filled with broken wood. My mom made a face of disgust. "This house is so old. It doesn't even have furniture, Sue. Where have you been cooking these days?" The dilapidation of the house was intentional. I had dismantled some unnecessary furniture long ago and thrown it into various corners. Apart from my bed, a small table, and a chair, there was not a single intact piece of furniture in the entire house. It was all a mess. This was to prevent any ill-intentioned people from targeting me. Unexpectedly, no one from the village came, but my parents were the first to visit. I pursed my lips, pretending to be pitiful. "Mom, where do I have food to cook? I've been surviving on dried bread and instant noodles that the aunts sent before." My mom's eyes lit up, and she immediately pressed on, "Oh, where did you put them?" I pointed to a broken bamboo basket in the corner of the hall. "It's hidden in there." My mom quickly stepped forward, flipped the basket over, and indeed found a small bag of bread and a half bag of instant noodles. She looked somewhat dissatisfied and glanced at my dad. My dad had already checked several rooms and found nothing. He could only shake his head at my mom, frowning. My mom said to me, "Sue, you haven't paid this month's support money yet. Mom will just take this food in lieu." "Mom, if you take it all, what will I do? I'll starve. You're grown up now. You can't rely on your parents anymore. Girls need to be independent. You have to rely on yourself." After saying this, my mom, holding the food, and my dad hurriedly left under the scorching sun. I was already prepared for my parents to come asking for food. Unexpectedly, they arrived just about 2 months after I anticipated. This was much earlier than I had guessed. I locked the door, returned to my room, and pulled out my tablet to turn on the surveillance footage from the store. I run a store in the countryside by myself and, for security reasons, have installed several hidden cameras inside the house. My parents didn't know about this and didn't check after moving in. Now, it was the perfect time to see what was happening. After I left, they moved straight into the house, watching the once fully stocked shelves, now emptied as I had sold everything. Each of them was furious, their faces turning a livid shade of blue. My brother, with a dark expression, kept cursing me as he unloaded supplies from the car. Which family practices gender equality like ours? We treated Sue so well. And she went ahead and sold all our supplies. Such an ingrate. Has she lost her mind? It's practically the apocalypse, and she still plays the saint. Crazy. I won't give her a single piece of these supplies. Let her starve to death in the old house. There were quite a few supplies moved out of the van. I figured that, if used sparingly, they could last about 3 or 4 months. However, I hadn't anticipated my brother's spoiled nature from childhood. He had always lived a life where he could have anything he wanted, never experiencing a lack of food. So now, seeing that he still had a considerable stash of supplies, he indulged without restraint. Our parents initially tried to moderate his consumption, but he retorted, "According to the rules of our house, all of this is mine. You should be grateful I'm letting you eat it all. What right do you have to control me?" Upon hearing this, my parents agreed and stopped persuading him. Then, a few nights ago, a group of people stealthily entered. My parents and brother, having eaten their fill, were sound asleep in bed, completely unaware of the intruders who climbed over the wall and entered through the second floor. These shadows quickly found the hidden supplies, pulled out prepared sacks, and efficiently packed them. By the time they escaped over the wall with the sacks, the 3 were still sleeping like logs. The next morning, waking to find the storage empty, they could only sit on the floor in dismay. Fortunately, they had hidden some food elsewhere, but it was clearly insufficient. After scrimping for a few days, my parents finally thought of me. Sue didn't take anything, but as long as she's alive, she must have found food. Yes, if she hadn't sold all the food in the store, we wouldn't be starving. This is all her fault, and besides, we are her parents. It's only right for her to support us. They planned to ask for food under the guise of maintenance. Unfortunately, the little food I took wasn't enough for the 3 of them. As soon as my parents returned home, before they could catch their breath, my brother was already complaining as he grabbed a bag of bread. "How is this enough? It's not even enough for one meal." My mother, her face red from the sun and clothes soaked with sweat, still had to comfort her son. "We still have some at home. If we eat sparingly, it should be enough." "That's not enough. Didn't Sue sell a lot of food to those country folk? She should ask them for some. They can't just watch their benefactor starve, can they?" Upon hearing this, my parents' faces lit up with smiles. "My son is so smart. Let's have Sue ask them." My dad took out his phone and dialed my number. Watching my father's actions on the video, my phone immediately rang. "Sue, don't starve yourself. Go ask the villagers for some food. They owe you a favor. Isn't it reasonable to ask for some food?" I suggested. "Dad, who would give away food at this hour?" I replied. "Well, there's still me. Many people in the village are my childhood friends. They'll give you something out of respect for me. But since you're using my connections, to be fair, you'll have to bring most of it back home," he reasoned. "Okay, Dad, just wait at home," I agreed. Ever since my parents were robbed once, people assumed they didn't have much food left. Thieves stopped targeting their place. I was worried about how to draw attention to them, but then they handed me the opportunity themselves. Following my father's instructions, I would go out early each morning when it was slightly cooler and ask for food. I approached the nearest house and knocked. "Uncle, my dad said he's been good friends with you since childhood, so he sent me to swap some food with you." Uncle Benson cracked the door open, eyeing me warily. "No swap. There's hardly any food left here. You better leave." I quickly pulled out a small bag of bread from my coat, ignoring Uncle Benson's suddenly eager eyes, and continued. "My little brother says he's tired of eating bread and instant noodles and wants to try something different." Uncle Benson stared intently at the bread in my hand, anxiously asking, "What do they want to exchange?" "Just some durable vegetables like potatoes and carrots, or even dried veggies would do. Bread is more filling than vegetables." I looked around sneakily and whispered. "My parents said getting some veggies would make meals more appetizing." Uncle Benson's eyes lit up, and he eagerly grabbed my arm. "Do your parents still have rice?" "I'm not sure about that. I'm just running errands for them. Afterwards, I'll take a couple of breads back to the old house to eat." Since my parents had kicked me out without food, many villagers knew about it, so they naturally believed what I said. Uncle Benson didn't ask any further. He hurried back inside and returned with a small bag of dried radishes, which he exchanged for the small bag of bread. Then, he firmly shut the door. I repeated the process at a few more houses. As the weather started to warm up, I quickly delivered the food to my parents. They happily accepted the food I brought, thinking I had begged for it. My dad even proudly boasted, "See, my contacts are useful," before sending me away. The next day, I again ran errands exchanging small breads. On the third day, I used the excuse of feeling unwell to stay home, but in just 2 days, it was enough for the villagers to know my parents still had food, and not just a little. Otherwise, why would they willingly trade bread for some less filling dried vegetables? I lay in bed at home, feeling at ease, waiting to see what the villagers would do next. In my room, I held my long-missed ice bucket while watching the surveillance on my tablet. As I predicted, late at night, several figures climbed over the wall into the shop. Since the last theft, my parents had stored the remaining food under their bed, so the thieves rummaged outside for a long time without finding a thing, forcing them to risk entering the bedroom. The noise woke my parents up. They shouted, "Catch the thief, there's a thief!" Seeing they were exposed, the thieves decided to escalate to a blatant robbery. My parents tried to intervene but were beaten up. They lay motionless on the ground as the thieves left. In passing, they also beat up my younger brother, who came out to see what the shouting was about. Only then did I climb over the wall and escape. From the security footage, I watched this family's faces swell and turn blue. Finally, I felt a sense of revenge. Just wait. Now that you've succeeded, everyone will know you still have food hidden. From now on, there will be an endless stream of people coming to steal and rob. In the village, after seeing my parents get robbed once, people noticed they still had plenty of supplies the second time. They were convinced my parents still had more hidden away, so people started coming nonstop. As soon as these people climbed the wall, they searched everywhere. If they couldn't find anything, they dragged up my father and brother and beat them. They forced my mother to hand over the food. My mom had nothing left, and could only watch helplessly as her husband and son were beaten to a pulp. Once everyone realized they truly had no food left, they left grudgingly. After they left, my mom scrambled up and, crying, called me. I picked up the phone slowly, listening to my mom lament, "Sue, your dad and brother have been beaten. Doesn't dad have many connections? Why didn't he ask for help?" My mom was taken aback by my response and continued crying, "Dear, please go find some food. Otherwise we are going to starve. You're all adults. Why are you still relying on a child? You need to fend for yourselves." Fine. Are you just going to abandon your parents?" I laughed and reassured her, "Mom, it's not easy to ask for things now. Don't worry. I'll see what I can do." I verbally agreed, but I really couldn't be bothered to move. Every day, my parents were at home starving to the point of hallucinating. They kept calling, and I kept making excuses. People wouldn't give me anything. There was no one at home. When they became desperate, I suggested, maybe try looking for food in the hills behind our house. Everyone is heading there. Our old home is near the mountains, but the nearby mountains aren't very high. In the past few months, they have become barren and yellow, but this is the only place in the countryside where food can still be found, even though the outdoor temperature has reached over 60 degrees Celsius. Many people have collapsed in the mountains, never to wake up again. Still, many risk being sunburned to death in search of food. In my previous life, I was killed by Brent on the way to the mountains, so this time, I left the decision to venture into the mountains to them. Sure enough, my parents stopped pressuring me to ask for food in the village. They started pressuring me to go into the mountains. I flatly refused. "I'm not going. That wouldn't be fair or just, which is our family's principle." "How is that unfair? Just like your brother, you two have to support the family. Why don't you send my brother then? His skin is too delicate. How could he withstand the sun?" I shouted. "That's blatant sexism. It's an insult to our family's honor. I won't do it." After saying that, I hung up the phone and turned it off. Then I quietly packed my things and hid next door. The house next door is an old building, uninhabited for over a decade, even more dilapidated than our old house. I had already secretly prepared a small room there, surrounded by piles of discarded furniture, absolutely hidden unless thoroughly searched. I arranged comfortable bedding and took out an ice bucket, comfortably lying down. I waited to see whom my parents would send out to find food. After 2 days of noisy quarrels, during which they even came to the old place trying to find me, after several unsuccessful attempts and with the sun growing more scorching, they had to give up and return, having fought several times at home and really unable to bear the hunger anymore. My mom finally headed towards the back mountain. She was not willing at all. My father had beaten her several times, and my son constantly complained about her. He even threatened that if he couldn't find food, he would trade her to the local militia for supplies. The militia was formed by some idle people in the scorching aftermath of the apocalypse. Taking advantage of their numbers and the fact that they were all young and strong men, they committed all sorts of atrocities in the nearby villages. Despite their bad reputation, they indeed managed to amass quite a few resources. Later, some inherently evil individuals even joined them willingly. They are now a notorious criminal gang in the area. Once their basic needs were met, these men started wanting women. Merely hinting that food could be exchanged for women was enough to make many desperate people agree. Some families, disregarding the women's wishes, forcefully took them to trade for food. In my previous life, my brother threatened me similarly. To avoid falling into the hands of the militia, I risked my life by fleeing to the mountains behind our home. Unexpectedly, I was killed by Brant on the way. This time, unable to find me, the burden fell on my mother. Braving the extreme heat of 60 degrees Celsius, my mother made several trips to the mountains behind our home. She actually managed to find some grassroots and cassava. However, she was so sunburned that blisters formed all over her body. Through the surveillance camera, I saw my mother lying on the ground, barely breathing. The blisters on her body burst, oozing pus and blood all over the ground. My father and brother, eating the cassava she found, didn't even look at her. I couldn't help but remember how she didn't glance at me either when I was beaten to death. Truly, like family. My brother then discussed with my father, while she's still breathing, we should quickly trade her for some food. Otherwise, once she's dead, we can't trade her for anything. After pondering for a while, my father agreed. They carried my mother out the door just like that. Soon, they sneaked back with a few bags of bread and biscuits, and some bottles of water. Is this all we got? How many days will this last? My brother cursed as he hid the supplies. He didn't see the shifty look in my father's eyes behind him. I had a feeling that my father was up to no good, so I kept an eye on the surveillance, watching what he would do. In a few days, the food they had traded for was gone. The two men lay in bed, neither mentioning going out to find food. A few days later, my father sneaked out while my brother was asleep. When he returned, he was followed by two strange men. As soon as they entered, they tied up my brother without a word. My brother struggled desperately, but how could someone weakened by hunger resist? One of the strangers casually touched my brother's face. Stop struggling, your dad has sold you to us. Heh. City folks sure are fairer than us here. My brother looked at my father in disbelief, his mouth gagged and making muffled noises. My father cowered in the corner, not daring to look at him. Just like my mother, my brother was carried away. They left behind several loaves of bread, a bag of rice, and a big bucket of water. It seems he was worth more. My father shakily stuffed bread into his mouth, muttering, "Gender equality, men can also be married off." I let out a cold laugh, too disgusted to watch any longer. I turned off the surveillance on my tablet and decided to ignore them forever. Outside, the chaos worsened, with people willing to kill for a bite of food or a sip of water. I hid in the broken house of a neighboring villager without moving. Everybody in the village knew I was in the old house, and going back was simply not safe. As long as I had enough food in my space, all I needed to do was stay hidden well. One night, I heard several people rummaging through my old house. Faint voices could be heard. Looks like there's no one left. Maybe they died in the mountains. I hid in a corner, holding my breath, not daring to make a sound. Fortunately, the neighboring house had been abandoned for over a decade, and they subconsciously overlooked it and didn't come to search. After searching for a while and finding nothing, they finally left. I breathed a sigh of relief. It seemed all was safe now. From then on, I became even more cautious, careful not to leave any trace that I was still living here. And during day by day, there finally came a day when the sky began to gather some dark clouds, just a few shallow layers that soon dispersed, but I knew that the end of the heat wave was near. The clouds grew thicker each day, and finally one evening, it poured. The rain lasted for 7 days, and the temperature quickly dropped to around 40 degrees Celsius. It was still hot, but at least it wasn't deadly anymore. The village began to come alive again. Those who survived walked out of their homes, kneeling in the rain, weeping bitterly. The apocalyptic heatwave had ended. The government reacted quickly, and soon, the self-defense groups were arrested by armed police. Those who dared to resist were shot on the spot. The public security also quickly organized village officials to thoroughly investigate those who had committed crimes before. Many were detained, and the village's public order returned to pre-apocalyptic conditions. Only then did I dare to return to my old house and interact with others. One day, the village secretary approached me to identify the bodies of my relatives. My mother had died just days after being sold, discarded by the self-defense group in a mountain ditch. My brother had been alive but went insane, disappearing during the chaos of the self-defense group's arrest. My father, however, was a surprise. I thought he might have starved in the house or sought refuge with the self-defense group. Instead, he was killed by Brent over some food. He had sold people twice, and Brent had seen both times. After selling my brother, Brent sneaked into the house under the cover of darkness. He intended to steal some food, but my father discovered him. In the struggle, Brent pulled out a kitchen knife and struck him. Brent killed him, took the food, and left. He was later caught and sentenced to death. I silently collected my parents' ashes and buried them in a pit in the back mountain. In the end, good and evil received their due. A year after the heat wave ended, I left my hometown and settled in another city. After the heat wave, the village secretary reported my deeds of generously helping my fellow villagers. Eventually, the province awarded me a humanitarian award and a cash prize. With that money, the proceeds from the store sales, and my previous savings, I bought a small apartment in a city with a mild climate. I got a job in a company that matched my college major in accounting. Every day after work, I would come home, pet my cat, and cook myself a delicious meal. Life went on peacefully and beautifully. Only the scars on my body reminded me of everything that had happened in these two lives.